I am Dynasty Outhouse, and I have a trading problem.
I am Rocky Petrella, and I also have a trading problem.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to session. No, I didn't up. It's 242 of the Trade Addicts podcast, a member of the DLF family of podcasts. It's really bad when I think I know the number in my head, but then I go look at the sheet and it's a different number.
That's not good.
That's when my brain breaks. But this is session 242 of the Trade Addicts podcast. Yet again, a member of the DLF family of podcasts, also a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts podcast network, the DAP network, if you will. And we will. It is, it's here. It's playoff time. I, being the respectable, caring, and loving commissioner that I am, spent seriously like the entire morning setting up the playoffs and the non-playoff team's rookie draft order for all 16 of my leagues.
Ouch.
One of which is a 48-team league.
That must have been fun.
Yes, that's what I did today.
Meanwhile, I was telling you before the show, I did not. I only have like 9 leagues, and I didn't do any of them yet.
Which is literally the only reason I brought it up, because I know Rocky didn't do it, and it was something I'd get to make fun of him for.
Yeah, after the show.
We'll see. Well, I'm just going to go to bed. You'll probably stay awake. But we're here. If the reason we are going live, and I think we're going to do this every year, and honestly, I think we've done this the past 2 years, and every year I say we should do this every year. Every year, I think we're going to do right before playoffs, right before week, I guess now 15 happens, we're going to go live, get all of you people in here asking your trade questions. What should you do right before the deadline? What should you do this? What should you do that? The real answer is get rid of your freaking deadline. But that's
exactly.
We can have that discussion if you want us to, but not yet. Because we need to talk about how obnoxious the NFL is being right now with their players getting injured. It is just not great. And hey, Kelly is in our chat at KPPokerKP, my pretty much favorite Twitter handle at this point, because it took me like 2 months to be able to say it right.
Yeah, but now you got it down. You can do it in your sleep now.
Yeah, now I probably do. I'll have to ask my wife. But seriously, like, why? Why can't we have nice things? Even some of these things that aren't really that nice, we still keep losing. Like, well, first of all, I was scrolling through the injuries at like 9:31 right before I hit live because I realized I forgot to do that. Like 18 people got concussions. And Mike, if you didn't know, Mike White has a rib injury. Oh my God. Like the hits that man took and came back. Like part of me is like, yeah, you're a warrior. You go back. And part of me is like, don't you like your organs? Like, they need that protection, of your rib cage and not have your ribs splinter and go through your organs.
This is Mike White's chance, Russ. You think he's gonna let a couple ribs keep him out?
Yeah, I guess not. Didn't someone? I think it was the Eagles. Someone had a lacerated kidney recally. Like,
yeah, defensive guy.
Yeah, like that's terrifying sounding. Like internal organs shouldn't, like, you're not getting stabbed, but somehow they get ripped. That's just terrifying. But what we know right now, first, I guess let's start with what we don't know. Ramondre Stevenson has an ankle injury. He went out of the game twice. There is nothing that's saying he's even missing next week. But are you worried? Like, are you doing anything? Are you just holding pat? Are you Pat?
I just thought of that. I was going to say that too.
I totally did that on purpose. No, I didn't. I don't know, man. Like, I think you have to hold on to him because he's good and he has a decent schedule. But like, let's say he plays. Do you play him confidently, or are you worried that he's gonna get like a snap count because they don't want to hurt him for the rest of the season or anything like that?
No, I think if they put him in there, he should be good to go. If a guy's on the field, I think I'm gonna play him. I don't see why they would put him out there, and they really haven't been splitting the load. I mean, part of that's Damian Harris's injury too, but we always make the joke, and that's what's been so great about Ramondre. We always talk about,
even when he hasn't, he has been getting around the same amount of touches, but his targets go up when Damian Harris plays, which is so weird. I remember looking into him at one point because I didn't know how to feel about it. There was a couple of weeks ago where I was trying to trade for him and I didn't want to give up a first. Like I wasn't ready to do it. I'm still not ready to do it. But I wanted to see if I was wrong. And I still didn't think I was, but I remember seeing them just like, that is okay, cool. But like part of me thinks he might be a guy next year too. Like I don't like you're like you said before, we are burned by Bill Belichick and his running
Yes.
backs. But I think Ramondre, at least he seems like he might be the guy. But
Yeah, and even when, like you said, even when Harris is there, he's the pass catching guy, and he's really good at it. And he's a bigger back too, so it's not like he's just some pass catching scat back. That's what's so great about him. And I wanted to throw something out at you since we're talking about Ramondre. This doesn't really have to do with his injury, but on Junkies last week, in the Find Me a Trade section, Andrew actually brought up a trade where it was actually one of my rosters, and it was trading Swift for Ramondre in a small piece. I think it was Nico Collins. Where do you have Swift compared to Ramondre at this point?
Like, that is two ships passing in the night, right? Like, that is how far has Swift fallen and how high is Ramondre going?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm trading Swift away, I'm hoping he has more name value than that.
That's
but I'm still
my
happy about getting the points Ramondre will score. Like, I don't have any DeAndre Swift shares left, but for a couple of the people that I talked to that have wanted to move on from him, I really hoped he was going to score like 12 or 13 points this past Sunday, because that's like good enough for some people who believed in the first place to give them some confirmation bias. Like, okay, he's back. It's okay. It's so good. Ship him out. But of course, he put up like 6 points and in a very high scoring game, no less. So,
yeah, I still can't give up the dream. And I heard that, I was just like, that's not enough for me.
No,
and I like Ramondre, but I still have this hope that he's going to be DeAndre Swift and he's going to get enough carries that he's good. And like at the beginning of this year, he wasn't, he's never going to be the guy that's carrying a big full load. But the beginning of this year, even with Williams stealing touchdowns, he was still having some 20-point games. And then since the injury, I feel like he really hasn't produced much at all since he came back, except for when he's had a random touchdown here or there.
Yeah, I mean, I always wonder on bad teams if they do stop and think, maybe we just don't do this to our main guy. Like, we know Swift is going to be our guy. Swift is going to be our guy next year. Let's just let Jamal Williams run the ball 300 times.
They're still in the playoff hunt.
They can't really do that. Like, no.
They're 6 and 7 or something like that.
It would be the most Lions thing ever to make the playoffs accidentally at this point.
Yeah, they might. They're actually like good now. Like they started off I think 1-6.
Oh,
they've won 5 of their last 6 or something like that.
How nice was it? Did you see Jameson Williams catch his first pass that was a touchdown?
Yeah, and I heard you talking about it. I think it was on Wall Street today.
Yeah. Like he just like threw his arms in the air and you saw the smile on his face. Like I started tearing up. It's just like, welcome to the NFL, J-Mo.
How amazing is that? First catch.
It's
confirmation bias for all us Jameson Williams truthers out here.
I mean, of course, he didn't really do much else, but still, it was a really nice catch.
Yes.
Okay, but real quick, Kelly threw in the chat, injuries are terrible. As a Broncos fan, I think we just got better via injury. First of all, ouch. Second, and then he put in quotes, let Russ nap. First, okay, well, I already said ouch. Second, no, you don't nap when you get a concussion.
Yeah, that's
how you go into a coma. So, no, let Russ rest. Let Russ recuperate. Rest and recuperate. See, you even get the alliteration with the Russ and recuperate.
Russ, rest, and recuperate. The 3 R's.
There you go. Russ, rest, and recuperate. There you go. Triple R. Okay, let's move on to the real injuries. Let's take steps. Let's not just like jump up or off the cliff or up the cliff. You don't jump off cliffs, whatever. We're gonna talk about Deebo first. That's what's happening. So Deebo Samuel, Rocky tells me because I forgot to look up what actually happened, sprained his MCL and ankle, and I am again being told by Rocky that Shanahan expects him back in about 3 weeks. And man, pure luck, and I am sorry that this seems to be my fault, traded away the only 2 Deebo shares I had before this Sunday. So Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to what the 49ers are right now, because from what I hear, Garoppolo can come back during the NFL playoffs, which means it is after the fantasy season. So we now have the Brock Purdy, that's his name, right? 49ers. Are you interested in Ayuk more, or is this just, oh, hey, this is even more passes for Christian McCaffrey?
For me, it's more passes for Christian McCaffrey. I think we talked about this when Jimmy went down, and I even kind of theorized that then that this could be good for McCaffrey with the young quarterback and rookie quarterback, and not a particularly well regarded one, although he's played much better than any of us expected.
Oh,
But yeah, but I
getting
mean
on the
the
field as a Mr. Irrelevant
irrelevant,
is
yeah.
like a big enough deal, and to throw a completion is pretty much above expectation.
At this point, yeah. So, but yeah, and one of the easiest ways to help him out is run McCaffrey and throw easy passes to McCaffrey. So, I think we're gonna. I also thought it might help Kittle, which has not been the case so far. But I do think, I think McCaffrey had 30 points this past week and 20 something the other game
I think it was like
Purdy
28,
got in.
29.
So yeah, I mean Ayuk actually I think had a pretty good game this past week too. I know he scored a touchdown. So I, I mean, it's got to be better for Ayuk without Debo there. That's generally when we see Ayuk produce is when somebody else is missing. But I still think it's best. I'm still much more higher on McCaffrey as kind of being the focal point of the offense now with Debo out of the picture. Kittle not seeming to get a ton of targets, and Purdy at quarterback, and he has played really well these first couple of games, but as the league gets a book on him, it could be tougher for him to hit some of these downfield throws he's been hitting, and I think that just means wheels up even more for McCaffrey.
Yeah, it looks like Ayuk got saved by that touchdown because he had 3 targets and it turned
Oh,
into 2
okay.
catches for 57
I must
yards.
have just saw only his 2 catches. I didn't watch the whole game, but I was watching when he scored the touchdown. So
Yeah, and I meant to watch that today, but I got way too again. I burned half my day doing the playoff setups.
playoffs
I'm like, oh, I guess I should probably do some work.
maybe a little.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I think I'm with you, and I got to be honest. If I'm a competing team, I pay almost any price for Christian McCaffrey right now. Like they have a decent schedule. Hold on, let me pull up the schedule again. I just closed out Ayuk's little box here.
I might have it up.
They have the Seahawks, Commanders, and Raiders. The Commanders are actually 4th best in points against running backs, but it's Christian McCaffrey, so who cares?
Right.
And the Seahawks and Raiders aren't good. So it's just like, but that is a really, really good schedule. And again, we talked about it on Wall Street. And I think the question was, would you give up an early first? And I said, honestly, if I have a competing team and I have someone else's early first, I think I do that without thinking. And that, again, anytime we talk about an early first, scrap the 101.
Yeah,
That
you're not giving
doesn't
up the
count.
101.
It is 102, 3, or 4, because once you hit 5, that turns into mid. If you want to be, nitpicky about it, because the 101 is going to be a first round startup value. Like Bijan Robinson will most likely be the running back 1, which means he's going to be drafted in the first round of startups. Even if we really, really like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, almost blanked on the name, and we like their landing spot, chances are at best they work their way up to someone jumping like the 112 just to take them because they want their rookie. I think we have enough good quarterbacks that, and then you have to add in Chase, Jefferson. Someone will probably jump on Jonathan Taylor, especially if he has a strong end to the season. Like I think we have enough after that it'll push those other 2 young quarterbacks down. But yeah, Bijan's going to be up there. So yeah, I would easily give up one of those quarterbacks, Young or Stroud, to get Christian McCaffrey on a competing team right now.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I would pay an early first for McCaffrey. I had my doubts that he would get the workload coming into the season, but he kind of has on both teams. Like
Oh, I
with
was
the
terrified.
Panthers
Yeah.
and with the there was a little bit there when Mitchell came back from his injury and they were
Speaking
giving
of,
him
it always gets hurt.
yeah, and they were giving him more work, I think, than we expected. Now that McCaffrey was there, but of course he got hurt again, and
Looks good
they
though.
don't really have that much else of note. So. And like we said, with Purdy, I still expect it's the offense to run through McCaffrey, get him the ball, and take pressure off Purdy. So yeah, I just think he's going to score. So I mean, like I said, we just talked about it. He's going to score so many points. I think with Purdy and a quarterback, it's still a Shanahan offense who likes to run the ball. And he knows how to he knows how to make the offense work. No matter who, he's never had a really good quarterback in San Francisco. Jimmy's adequate, but he's not anything special. And they just seem to be good on offense all the time, especially running the ball. So, yeah, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, I think, is going to win people championships. You pointed out the schedule, and he's Christian McCaffrey, so the schedule might not even matter. So. So I think
Not wrong.
I'm going to pay, the 102, 103, 104 for what I think can get me a title. And I need to see if I have any early first and go do that.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Let Russ play baseball. Yes, I will get behind that. We have Jesse Schott asking the question while we're talking about Debo. Going into the playoffs with an injured Debo, who would you go after for the push if you were planning on a rebuild in the non-point scoring season? So this is an interesting question because I'm making the playoffs and I want to compete, but this is probably it and I'm going to blow it up afterwards. Love it. Like that's love it. That's my job. So that's
why half your teams are rebuilding, Russ.
Oh man. Okay. So Trader Joe does this to me every year. I never want to know what my leagues look like. And then every year he does his recap of looking how many leagues he has, how many he's made the playoffs, how many had buys, and how many are rebuilds. I had 20 leagues, which I thought I had more, not gonna lie. But yeah, so 20 dynasty leagues. I made 10 playoffs and 9 are rebuilding, which means there is literally one league that I did not make the playoffs where I tried to. And it's freaking TA6, where honestly, I wanted to rebuild, but J-Mike wouldn't give me my first back, so I didn't completely blow it up. So honestly, I'm not even holding that against me.
And I'm glad you're not holding it against yourself.
But my teams love just shitting the bed at the end of the season.
I'm not sure where I know the majority of mine that I tried to win. I think there were like 3 leagues out of like 20 some that I tried to win where I didn't make the playoffs, and I have probably like 10 to 12 rebuilds out of this because I have like 40 instead of your 20. So but yeah, it was a pretty good season, but I definitely not as good as last year. Last year was ridiculous, and then I didn't win enough titles because I had like 14 buys and I only had like 4 titles. It was
oh my god, I did not do good last year. I'm glad we moved on. Okay, but let's get back to this question real quick. So Debo injured, playoffs, but want to rebuild. I pulled up the DLF trade analyzer because company man, and I went to the value section, and right underneath Debo is Garrett Wilson and Drake London. I'm not sure those get done right now anymore, but if you can, either of those. Drake is having, I mean, they have that change of quarterback.
Drake is helping for the push though,
but he might with the change of quarterback. That's what I was about to say. We don't know what he's going to look like right now, but we know he's good enough. He does very, very good. Other stat wise, and just not
just not the things that score you fantasy.
But a lot of his peripheral stuff, like I was, crap that I don't really know that I let smart people figure out and I listen to. That everything he did was right. It was just that Mariota couldn't get him the ball. And it was the same thing with Pitts. So I love the idea of getting London because I think 2 weeks into next season, if London does what he did at the beginning of this season, his price is probably going to skyrocket. Or you just have a great piece to center your rebuild around. And I mean, Garrett Wilson is just very, very good. Look what he does on the Jets. I mean,
I like the Wilson one better because he's producing more, not an amazing pace, but he's, especially since Wilson got yanked the last couple of games, he's been doing solid. Had some games, good games earlier in the year when Wilson was hurt. And he's, like you said, he's just a very good player. And I believe that I was trying to find it, but the Jets' schedule is pretty yeah, Lions, Jaguars, and Seahawks in the playoffs.
Those are all
that should be good for everybody on the Jets. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so I like that one a lot, and obviously he'd be great for a rebuild as well. I think he's gonna be a star once if they get the quarterback position figured out.
Okay, scrolling down a bit, what about Michael Pittman? I know, because I think we're past the point of thinking Debo's going to get back to being what he was last year. So his trade value is definitely not top 12 wide receiver. And I think we're at the same place with Pittman. And while it is mostly because the Colts just don't like getting good quarterbacks, or they like getting good quarterbacks that were good 6 years ago.
Yeah.
One of the two. I mean, like Derek Carr is probably going to be their next one. But
my prediction was Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, yeah. I like that too much. So that's why I think Derek Carr makes more sense. So I don't dislike that idea. Pittman for Debo. It's you get a year or two back because they were just drafted a year apart. I don't remember how old each of them are. But I do really just like Pittman better than Debo play-wise.
Yeah, Pittman's 25. I don't have Debo in front of. Oh wait, I did.
He's 26, I think. So
you're fine. 26. Yeah, he'll be 27 in January.
I mean, scrolling down even a little bit further, it gets a little rough after that. Chris Godwin, I don't hate that. I really like Chris Godwin. He is 26 already. Will be 27 going into next year. Najee
not
Harris
old.
is down here. What would you think about trading for Najee Harris in a rebuild? I think his value has a chance of. He'll never go back up to RB2, but I still think he has a chance of going up.
Yeah, I think he has a chance of going up, and I do think he'll produce more next year too. But I mean, if you're in a rebuild, do you want him to produce next year? I don't know, but
no, I mean, just to move him away. I don't want to hold on.
Yeah, just for the value bump. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so. I don't know that that's going to happen until he I don't know that he's going to be worth that much more than he is now. I don't see why in the off season it would go up all that much more.
Okay. I'm going to list a couple of players here. If you tell me I could trade away Debo and walk away with either Devonta Smith, Treylon Burks, Marquise Brown, Jameson Williams, and like a second, I might do some of those straight up right now. But like those, that. If I could walk away with those players and a second, I'll throw a third, like Debo and a third for any of those guys in a second, and I will literally dance. Like these guys can help you this season, and they are just really good. And
I love that. I didn't catch all the names, but I heard Devontae in there, and I love that one because I think he's so undervalued. Like I know he's never going to be your 25 point a game type guy, but he has these blow up games, and he produces a lot, even like on a wide receiver 2-3 level, even when he doesn't.
But he does well. He doesn't have that many games under 10 points. And I know
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Arbitrary line we draw, just because that seems like in 12 teams, start 10. Underneath 10 is when you feel crappy about it. Like that's really all it is. It's completely anecdotal. But Devonta Smith, Treylon Burks, Marquise Brown, and Jameson Williams. I would trade Debo and a third for any of those four players in a second. Marquise Brown, I would probably do straight up. Honestly, Treylon Burks, I might do. Okay, so it's really just Jameson Williams I would want the second on. The rest of them I would do straight up. And that might be me being a little low on Debo, but I think it's that the analyzer being a little low on the rest of these guys.
Yeah, I think so too. But again, with this specific question,
that's a lot. But you know,
with this specific question, if he wants points this year too, some of those guys aren't great.
Points.
I'm sorry.
I think all of those four players score points for the rest of the season.
Burks, I guess Burks would make me a little nervous because did he? Yeah, that's the thing. So, And then that offense, that offense isn't that. I turned away for a second, and then look back, and you're holding the thing up there. But yeah, he even when he's looking good, and he had a 100-yard game before the concussion. But I just that offense does not look good right now. They got killed by the Eagles a couple weeks ago, and even against Jacksonville, they didn't look great. So that was without him, of course. But I think he did not play last week. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I love Devontae. Jameson Williams is really interesting too because he, what we talked about the touchdown, he could get worked in even more here. So I think Burks is more the one that I would be a little nervous if you actually are looking for points and not just the rebuild aspect.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough about the freaking 49ers. Come on now. So let's move on to let's talk about Kyler Murray tearing his ACL in week 14. That's rough.
Yeah, we're not going to see him for halfway into next season, probably.
As a running quarterback, do you think we see him next season?
I mean, I don't think he's going to sit out the whole entire year next year. I think they're going to want to get him back. So I don't expect that they'll just, sit him for the entire 2023 season. But yeah, I mean, his value obviously takes a huge hit because of what you just said, because he is a running quarterback. We've talked about this before. He is one of the better passers of the running quarterbacks after, of course, my guy, Jalen Hurts. But I just
I'm trying.
For those listening on the podcast, Russ is having all sorts of issues with this camera right now.
Just all sorts of issues.
It's distracting me.
Camera's just one of them.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens with Kyler this non-point scoring season, because I got to think his value takes a big hit because, like what you just said, we don't know when he's going to play again. He's not going to start next year. That seems literally impossible unless he's just a medical marvel. So, and for his legs to be such a big part of it, I mean, we saw a different injury, but we saw, Dak used to be a guy that ran around a little bit and scored just some rushing touchdowns. And after he broke his ankle, that was like non-existent in his game. I don't think that's going to happen with Kyler, but you got to think it's going to be scaled back some. And a lot of, it's not like Kyler was sky high in value as it is anyway. He was, kind of falling in value because he had, quote unquote mediocre year. It was like QB 10 or something like that.
But he also started to do really well towards the end.
Yeah.
Like the last few weeks, he started to do really well. But he was around that 19 points per game for the first bunch of weeks. And it's just like, all right, I can get that from anyone. Why should I pay top three? Hey, my camera. Why should I pay top three quarterback prices? Then again, the last few weeks, he was putting up those numbers. But yeah, I was a little scared off of him. I pulled up the trade finder on DLF. And what was the date? 2 days ago, right? That he got hurt?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was last night.
It was last night. Never mind. So there was one trade so far. It is a 36-team league. Okay. All right. So yeah, 3 12s. Kyler Murray and George Kittle for Tom Brady, Zeke Elliott, and Travis Kelce.
That's interesting.
It doesn't say on
some
here. Hold on, let's go see if there's. I'm going to go into the league because I got to know. Oh man, this is a really cool looking league. It is console wars, and it's Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo.
I like it.
And they have really cool pictures. And oh man, all right, now I got sidetracked. Hold on. So rules, scoring, 0.5 premium for tight ends. I mean, I don't hate that. This deal is pretty much Kyler for Kelce.
Yeah, it's basically was Brady, Kelce, and who?
Zeke.
Who's also doing pretty well. He's been scoring 15 to 20 points a game for most of the time since Dak came back from his injury. So yeah, I mean, if you want to get the points, I don't hate that. I was just going to mention too that I think for rebuild, he's a great target, Kyler, because he was, like I said, already descending in value. Its value is going to go down even more, especially right now if you do it during the playoffs for these teams that made it with Kyler.
Yeah.
And I've always been a bit of a, well, not always, but especially in recent years, been a bit of a Kyler truther, and this season particularly, I've been higher on him than most others, even though I don't have much Kyler because I don't usually pay that much for quarterbacks. But this would be the perfect time for me to go get him. So, as someone who doesn't want to pay up for quarterbacks, so
I gave you one a couple of weeks ago, and it's working out in my favor now. Man, oh man, and I traded Kyler. I mean, that was a few weeks ago. Tom Brady only has 18.4 points per game.
Yeah, that's the thing with that trade is, Tom Brady isn't Tom Brady, and you might only be getting 3 games of them. So
Yeah, that's a little rough. Yeah, so Kyler Murray with that 0.75 from last night is averaging 21 points per game. And I'm far too lazy, and we're live, so I'm not going to figure out what it is without that right now. So, I mean, that's still pretty good. Like, that is,
yeah.
I mean, that probably jumps him up to around that 6-7 area of, points per game, in which case, it's pretty much top tier, unless, oh,
What?
because for a while, it was like Josh Allen and then the rest. Mahomes is first at 28.7. Hurts is 2 at 28.4, and then Josh Allen at 27.8. Hurts, he's for real.
By the
But
way,
no, wait.
What?
But he might be replaced.
Yes, he's clearly not going to, be with the Eagles next year.
We don't know. We can't talk indefinite.
I have to point out though too, because I got ridiculed by Josh and Drew on Timeline because I pointed out that Jalen Hurts isn't necessarily only what he was in 2021 as a passer. Guys can make the jump, and I said we saw it happen with Josh Allen, and they of course made it. Rocky says Jalen Hurts is going to be Josh Allen. Well, guess what? Jalen Hurts is Josh Allen.
Just saying, when Josh Allen wasn't Josh Allen, who called Josh Allen being Josh Allen?
You did call him being
on the Junkies.
QB1, yes. But yeah, Hurts passing stats are counting numbers. They're not as great in terms. He's got like 22 touchdowns, just a little over 3,000 yards. But like, and the rate of what he's passing, like the number of passes he's throwing, and the efficiency, his QB rating, yards per attempt. If he wasn't running so much, his numbers would look a lot better.
I'm just saying, as it is. Todd McShay put out his first mock draft, and what was it, like pick 5? Eagles take Bijan.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate having Bijan, but I
not a pick 5.
Yeah, not a pick 5. We'll get him at pick 32. Or trade up from pick 32. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, even like I said, he has 22 touchdowns. He has 32 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The guys could win MVP.
But I mean, like, think about it. Josh Allen, 3rd year, they get him Steph Diggs. He takes the jump. Jalen Hurts, 3rd year. Maybe we give him AJ Brown.
And he takes the jump, yeah, and he's been improving like every year going back to college too. You weren't necessarily expecting this, but I was expecting significant improvement from last year when everyone said, "Oh, well, he's not accurate. He can't." The guy improved over year 1 to year 2. I knew he was going to improve over year 2 to year 3. I just didn't think it would be this much.
All right, so let's go back to Kyler, even though we just like talking about Jalen Hurts on this show.
Yes, we do.
But we're going to go back to Kyler for a second. Now, I'm very curious where we spot him in QB rankings. Yes, very nice Eagles shirt. So Kyler Murray in November ADP was QB 7, which is pretty right. Above him is Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson. And then there's Kyler. So now I'm going to start reading down, and we're just going to play our game, Kyler or whoever I read. Kyler or Tua?
Tua.
Dak Prescott?
That one's tougher. Because Dak has been playing better.
Man, like, I know they're not replacing him because it's Jarrett, and Dak's not like doing bad or anything, but like, it's not really doing great or anything.
Yeah, and especially fantasy wise, like this, like
18,
last game
19,
they
19.
had they were okay on offense, but he only had like I don't think he had any touchdowns, or he had one touchdown or
One
something.
touchdown, 2 picks.
Yeah.
I,
Uh,
I mean, wow. They have Jaguars, Eagles, Titans, and Eagles are a tough matchup, but Jaguars
yeah.
and Titans are not.
No.
I still,
I was gonna ask, who do you
I'm,
take there?
I'm too impatient to say Kyler. That's really what it comes
That's
down
the
to.
thing.
Dak is good enough where he'll still help your competing teams. He will not hurt your team because even when he does poorly, he still gets 18, 19 points. So I think I put Dak there. And honestly, I would understand Kyler being put in right here. Though there is one or two players I will put above him in a second.
Yeah, I think I would take Dak too.
Deshaun Watson.
Oh my god.
Look, you're waiting on Deshaun anyway, so I'll just wait on Kyler.
I yeah, but you're not worried about you know,
I'm worried
him
about other
missing in
things.
the entirety of next year, like you were suggesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I still look, of course, like if I want to compete from day one, like at this point, we have to talk about it as if we're rebuilding. Like, so if you're in a rebuilding team, I mean, age-wise, Kyler 25.3, Deshaun Watson 27.2. It's I think point in QB age where that just doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. From a rebuilding standpoint, I'll wait on Kyler, and I he runs more than Watson does too. So I'll take Kyler.
Here's where it gets a little interesting. The next two names, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence.
See, Justin Fields is easier for me. I would take Fields.
I want both of them over. And
See, I've
again,
never been as high on Lawrence. I was when he came out, but I didn't keep believing as much as most people did after last year, despite Urban Meyer. And I
I mean,
still need to be convinced a little more.
oh, there's a lot that needs to be consistent, but like he looks good this week. Like
Yeah, they're playing the Titans, so
it's a start, right? Like last year they couldn't do good against anybody. Now
that's true.
good. When you have a good matchup, take
Titans
advantage of it.
secondary is bad though,
Like
but yeah.
I'm good with that. I don't need him to walk in and be the Trevor Lawrence year two that we wanted him to be. Like that's fine. I'm good taking those steps. And especially because that doesn't balloon his price too quickly so I can get more of him before he does become that. I mean, after that, we get into old people of like Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Geno Smith. I don't think
No.
anybody really wants Kenny Pickett, Matt Stafford, Daniel Jones. And I think at this point, we're just okay. Here's an interesting one. Trey Lance.
I still want Kyler.
Yeah. I think if anything, the only reason I would want Lance is because he'll have the ability to have a value spike sooner.
Yeah.
So you could probably turn that value spike into Kyler Plus. You know, like I don't
Probably.
like I'm worried about Lance in general. So if I have him on one of my teams, I would love to be able to take advantage of that, have that spike, get Kyler in a second, and move on with my life. Wait for Kyler to come back, and yeah, I have a pretty second to do something with.
Yeah, I can see that. And I do I like Lancelot. You know, I was high on him coming into this year. I'd actually, you know, acquired him in a few places. And then had to trade him away because he got hurt. But yeah, I think he scares me a little bit because we haven't he won't have played football essentially for other than a game or two for 3 years.
Yeah.
He's played like one to 2 games a season over the last 3 years, thanks to injury and his college. The COVID year, really only played one game. So I'd rather take the certainty that I feel I have in Kyler, even coming back from an ACL, if I'm rebuilding, than the maybe of Lance.
Yeah. And yes, the end. All right, we're going to jump into the listener questions because they're relevant to what we're saying. Lots of quarterback talk. The first one at Run DFF, who could be here right now but is choosing not to be. Who are you targeting for cheap if you lost Kyler Murray? And I do mean cheap. So again, let me just go right back to ADP. And I think my answer, if people still just think Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones and they don't like him, I think he's a really, like, if we're talking you just pay a second to go get him, Daniel Jones. Honestly, you think you could still get Brock Purdy for a third? Because if you can, I
I
don't
know
hate that.
Justin wants a third for Brock Purdy and DDCL, but
So exactly, like again, like we said before, his schedule isn't bad, and if a lot of his passes are just going to be dump offs and getting points from running, that's feel safe.
yeah, I was thinking even cheaper when I saw this question.
Ooh, okay.
We talked about the Jets schedule earlier. Assuming he's healthy, Mike White you could probably get for like a late third, even after his good couple games. I would think. I think anybody's going to be happy to get anything they can from Mike White because no one expects him, I think, to be the QB next year. So excuse me. And like we talked about, their schedule is really good. I don't remember what it was, but I mentioned it earlier in the show. So go back and listen if you don't remember either.
Listen to the show again.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, Purdy could be an option too with the San Francisco schedule. I just worry. I think you mentioned this on some other podcast. It might also have been Wall Street that how Mike White, though last year's Mike White kind of came out guns blazing and then sort of turned back into a pumpkin. And we're still worried about that a little bit with Purdy.
Okay, but hear me out. Matt Ryan, Vikings, Chargers, Giants.
That's not bad. Giants are a better defense than you might think, but
yeah. 29, 21, 15. MFL, all they do is fantasy points against, which clearly isn't any
right.
But, that's what I have. Like, I don't really, you don't have to pay more than a third for Matt Ryan. I feel like, especially like, oh man, I think we'll talk about the price of Ryan Tannehill in a second. His schedule isn't great. Chargers, Texans, and Cowboys. It's funny, the Texans are the number 2 against quarterbacks.
That's because everybody runs against them because
you don't have to pass against them, which is why using fantasy points against doesn't really always work.
You're usually winning against the Texans, and B, their running defense is horrible anyway.
So bad. But again, he's someone cheap. He's still, hit 1, 2, 3, 4, past 5 games, 21, 14, 15, 23, 22. I mean, that's good. Anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, Taylor Heineke. I mean, there's a lot.
I was just going to mention him, Taylor Heineke.
His schedule is a little rough. Giants, Niners, Browns. Like, that's not a great schedule.
No, it's not. I don't really like anybody against the Niners. I think the Niners may have the best defense in football. So,
Daniel Jones, Commanders, Vikings, Colts. I like that. I think that's really my list because I think everyone else. I mean, like Derek Carr, I'm terrified after. Oh, he scored positive points in Trade Addicts League. Patriots, Steelers, Niners. I know that Steelers are 23rd here, but like anytime I feel like the Steelers can just have the best defense in the league, like for one game. And my luck, it would be this game when I have to start Derek Carr. But I think that's good enough. I think we've helped more than enough. The next quarterback question we have is at Andrew Hall FF. And we should have talked about this a little bit ago. Who would you rather have in Dynasty, Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts?
Oh, that's a no-brainer to me. Jalen Hurts.
I was waiting. I'm like, I'm going to say Jalen Hurts, and if you don't, I'm going to feel silly because you're the guy in the Eagles stuff. Like, okay, I get it. We've seen Lamar Jackson break fantasy football. That was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And at a time where he was just running, like it's Jalen Hurts. I kind of wish Greg Roman left. Like Greg Roman was being scouted to be the coach of Stanford, but they hired someone else. If Greg Roman left, maybe they build an offense and not just
like the Eagles have.
Something though, like one wide receiver, one tight end, and one running back, even though 6 of your running backs constantly get hurt.
And that's the thing. The Eagles invest in the pass. They want to be a passing team. Like their volume is still not as high as maybe some people would like it to be. Partially because Hurts, runs a lot. and
And Miles
partially
Sanders is
because
doing good.
yeah, exactly. Partially because they have a good offensive line and a good running back, and they do very well running the ball. I think they had like 240 yards rushing the ball this past game, Sanders I think had 140 of that. But and Hurts, going back to Hurts, he gives you like probably about 75% rush of the rushing you're getting. You know, the rushing stats you're getting from Lamar anyway. Like he's gonna fit. He's got almost 700 yards and he's got 10 touchdowns rushing already. So, uh, and we talked about a little earlier how good of a passer he is, you know, this season, and he's got 32 total touchdowns. He's not necessarily breaking fantasy, but like I said, they are trying to pass the ball. They don't like the Ravens are trying not to pass the ball. It seems like a
Yes.
lot of they're building their offense so they don't have to pass the ball much, and they're not investing in weapons. And if they could run the ball 40 times a game, they'd be thrilled. The Eagles can do that and occasionally will do that, but they want to be able, they know you need to pass the ball to win. And Hurts is good enough now that, you know, if the running game isn't working, he could put up huge passing numbers. So, yeah, I think it's Hurts, and I think it's pretty easily Hurts at this point, especially now that we know he is coming back. Well, he's not signed, but we know he's coming back.
We do not have
He is
definitive proof that they are not going to draft a quarterback.
They
That's
are
all
not.
I'm saying.
I will guarantee you they will not draft a quarterback of any significance. Maybe in the 6th round, I don't know, but no one that's going to matter. He is gonna get so much friggin' money this season.
Yeah.
So
honestly, even if it's not from the Eagles, he's getting so
it's
much
going to be from the
Eagles.
Eagles.
Be from the
This
Eagles.
team
know,
could be
it's
probably at worst in the NFC Championship. He's going to be getting a massive contract from the Eagles.
So did you just jinx the Eagles and how
probably now they're going out in the
that was a terrible thing to say out loud, Rocky. Okay, we have an interesting, we're both signing with Hurts, and it's really not disrespect to Lamar whatsoever. It's the offense and the way they want to run the offense. Lamar isn't bad.
Exactly.
But the Eagles have shown that they want their offense to go through Hurts.
Yes.
Even if it's running, because most of their runs are still options. At any given time, he'll hold the ball. Okay.
And I just want to point out too, this is aside from my Eagles fandom, because I've said many times on the show in the past that I often tend to be more pessimistic about my own team's players.
Yep.
And part of it is sort of because of my fandom, because I get to see the guy every week, but you can just see how good of a passer he is and how he's improved by leaps and bounds. And he's just going to be very good for a long time, I think, as long as he can stay healthy.
I just got offered in a Trade Addicts league Tyquan Thornton and Mark Andrews for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Pat Freiermuth. Yeah. We're going to talk about Andrews in a second. Let me hit the reject button real fast.
Yeah, that's not great.
I was going to answer the question in the chat first, but we're going to go over to this because I just brought it up. At @NoobEngineer_. Do you find people think Mark Andrews is a buy low, or is this season indicative of his future? Nice word in there, man. If he is a buy low, what would you say his value was in terms of picks? Tight end premium naturally. Thanks. You guys are the best. Yeah, we are. You're the best, Noob. You give us great questions. Okay, so here's my story. I have Mark Andrews on 2 competing teams, and I have I have other tight ends on both of those teams. I can't say secondary tight ends because on one of the teams, the other tight end is Travis Kelce. And I was trying to find trades to trade away Mark Andrews, and none of it feels good. None of it feels right. I feel like I need more no matter what I do. But he's not scoring points. Like, we're at the point where the defense only needs to have a spy on Lamar, one linebacker following the running back, and like 6 dudes can just follow Andrews, and that's it. And it's been a couple of games. So I'm legit worried for the rest of this season. Like, if you tell me Bateman comes back and is healthy, they draft another wide receiver, and Dobbins can stay and Lamar stay healthy, cool. Maybe Andrews goes back to what he was. I don't know, man. Like, if I can trade him away and get something for real in my contending ship right now, wow, I froze. If I can get something good for my contending team that isn't going to like die next year, like I getting it was in TA2. Jerry was after a tight end upgrade for a while, so he keeps coming after Andrews, and he has Derrick Henry on his team, and I'm like, I really, really would love to pull Derrick Henry on my team, but there's a gap, and it's a very wide gap in there. And coming back, I would need something that was going to score me points that is also decently young, because Andrews is only 26. Like, even if next year is bad, he has a lot left. Derrick Henry does not have a lot left. And I don't want to just completely hamstring my team like that, because I'm me and I traded all my picks away to get good, so it's so hard to trade Andrews away. And then I go into my Dynasty Wall Street chat with Kane and John Bosch, and John Bosch literally just yells at me. He literally says, "Stop being you. You don't have to trade Andrews away." And then I say, "But I want someone scoring points." And I really don't know what to do. But I honestly,
when you say that, it made me think. Given the huge gap in points, would you trade him for Kelsey straight up?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to on a contender, but it would. I keep worrying next year. The next year is going to finally be the cliff for Travis Kelce. And
if you're not watching live and you're not watching this on YouTube afterwards, there was a heavy eye roll on my part.
Yes, there was.
After saying that. There is zero reason to believe that's going to happen. I don't think we stick with these, age ranges that we had 4 or 5 years ago, even, because you see what these players look like these days. They are not humans anymore. And Travis Kelce's nickname is Zeus. He looks like Zeus. I zero worry about next year. And honestly, that's all I care about.
I think you're probably right. And like I said, if I'm contending, I think I would have to do that.
Like,
but
it's
not as easy for me as it is for you.
We saw Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, Jason Witten to some extent, even though he couldn't really run at some point.
Yeah.
Same thing with Gates towards the end. But they played into their upper 30s. If Kelce were to stop playing, it would be a choice. It wouldn't be, I need to retire. Like, short of some catastrophic injury. Like, he's not slowing down at all. And, like, what happens if they don't re-sign Juju?
And yeah, I don't disagree with you that he's not going to just stop playing or just be horrible. But if he becomes what Mark Andrews is this year, was it worth doing it for 3 games and then you're getting 15 points a game from Kelce or something like that?
Honestly, yes. Like, if you can tell me I'm getting a tight end that won me a championship this year or made me much more likely to win it, because let's face it, nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And I could still get top 3 tight end numbers in a heartbeat. I would do that without even thinking about it. Because what if this is just what Andrews is going forward? It shouldn't be, but
yeah, I mean, I don't think this is what he's going to be going forward. Like you said, Bateman will be coming back. I don't know if they'll draft or sign anybody better than what they have around, a healthy Bateman and Andrews now. But we saw last year what Andrews did, and the beginning of this year. I was looking. It's 4 of his first 6 games are in Trade Addicts, scoring with the 1.75 or 28 points or higher. And then it fell off, which probably is around the time that Bateman got hurt.
And he got hurt too.
That's right, and he did get hurt. So I don't think what we're seeing is indicative of his future. It is definitely, he hasn't gone over 17 since his last 20-point game. So which was like week 6. So yeah, which is not great. But like I said, I think that's about the time he got hurt, and Bateman got hurt, and now we have Lamar hurt. So we're not going to see that the rest of this year.
Okay, so let's get to the last part of this question. Let's say you have me in your league, and I have Mark Andrews on my team. I'm not necessarily thrilled about him. You're a competing team. You have your first. Do you send your first for Mark Andrews right now?
From the competing team, yes. Late first, yes. You would not send the late first for Mark Andrews?
You have to. Do I want to? I don't think so. First of all, just thinking about the more I hear and learn about these players coming in, I don't think it's just hype. Like, I think a lot of these players are that good. And I was never that big a fan of Andrews. Like, it was so efficiency based until last year when there was no one else to throw the ball to. But now that there's no one else to throw the ball to, defenses realize we could just put 6 dudes on him. For some reason, they didn't do that last year. So the answer, yeah. Like, I'm definitely not sending. I guess technically now you know if it's a playoff or a non-playoff first. I am not sending a non-playoff first for Mark Andrews, even in the 0.75 premium scoring that we have. But I would have to, I don't know, man, like already have Kelsey on my team and have someone else get hurt. So I go and buy Andrews for double positional advantage kind of thing for me to want to do it. It's just,
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be going after him at this point with my late first. I'd rather have someone. If I'm going to give up a first, I'd rather have someone that I feel more confident is going to score points. I mean, we're talking about it. He hasn't. It's the last 3 games, especially at 14. This isn't Trade Addicts scoring with a 0.75 premium. It's 14, 12.4, 5.2. So, yeah.
Okay, before we move on to the Trade Addicts trades, we are going to go back to Howdy's Heroes. Oh man, Howdy's Heroes is always in our chat on the grind on tomorrow. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so in a 10-team standard scoring 1 quarterback league where you start 8, this is their starters: Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Hawkinson, and for some reason they put Monty in their last starting spot because on their bench, DK Metcalf and Devonta Smith. Like, yeah, you need to replace Monty with one of those two, because the next question is, do you trade the 104 for Eckler or Henry straight up as a contender? Now, again, this is 1 quarterback, so this is going to be
probably
wide receiver 2, running back 2, depending on the order they go in, for Eckler or Henry, who are going to give you a chance. Here's the question. It doesn't really need to be a question. We could look it up. What's the points per game difference between someone like DK Metcalf and Austin Eckler or Derrick Henry? If you're part of the Dynasty Trade Calculator Discord, you can go see, I whisper that so none of my DLF brethren hear that. Discord, you can see I made a video about DK Metcalf today. And in the ever since halfway through the season, so week 8 forward, he's averaging almost 19 points per game. Like, he's doing really, really well. So, like, honestly, yes, Henry and Eckler are awesome. And yeah, they are. Hold on, let me hear. Okay, I pulled it up. Eckler, 22 points per game. Derrick Henry, 18 points per game. And Henry does have a very good schedule going forward. But, like, is that going to make that much of a difference over DK Metcalf or over the ceiling of Devonta Smith? I don't think so. Like, I would rather plug one of those 2 wide receivers into my last flex spot and call it a day.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it giving up even the 1 QB thing, the 104.
It's just a really high pick. Like,
yeah.
If in a 1 QB, if we were talking 106, 107, I would probably do it just for the heck of it. But like,
not to mention, the rest of his lineup is really good to begin with. Anyway,
and we don't need to. Like, that is, I will absolutely say you don't need to. That has never stopped me from making a trade before, so I don't want to say don't do it.
But do as Russ says, not as he does.
Rocky gets me. Hold on. Austin Eckler's schedule. Oof. Titans, Colts, Rams. I mean, he makes most of his money these days on receptions, so it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah, I
those are
don't worry as
two.
much
Titans and
about
Rams
those
are,
kind of numbers, like the MFL numbers, when you're
yeah.
talking to a receiving back like him or McCaffrey or something like
Oh
that.
man, in week 12 he had 15 targets. That's ridiculous. And hold on, Derrick Henry. Oof. Okay, well he has the Chargers and the Texans, and then he gets the Cowboys in the last week, which is a little rough. But Chargers are 25th. Texans are clearly the worst. So, whew. But I really don't think you need to make that trade. I don't. Hoping you don't. They did. I don't know if you have a deadline. If you don't, clearly don't trade. The trade will be there if you need it later. So yeah, I saying the words "don't trade" is like
It's tough for
I can't do it, but that's the answer. Okay, let's get to our trade addicts trades. Trade addicts leagues, 12 teams, super flex, PPR, tight end premium, 1.75 points per tight end reception with 0.05 points for return yardage, except for TA1. And we have a really weird TA1 trade. Like I said before, we were going to talk about Ryan Tannehill's value. I am not necessarily a fan of Ryan Tannehill as a fantasy football quarterback or as a real life quarterback. I also really just want to see Malik Willis get a chance. But still, even if Tannehill gets cut or something like that, he will be a starter somewhere. He is good enough to get a job somewhere. In TA1, a team that did not make the playoffs that was trying to traded Ryan Tannehill for Darnell Mooney and Hunter Renfrow. Like, I don't care. Like, that's not enough for a starting quarterback.
No, Hunter Renfrow is like nothing anymore.
Even before he was injured, he didn't do anything. And Darnell Mooney, cool, but like, okay.
And like you said, Tannehill's. I firmly believe Tannehill's going to be the starter next year.
I think he will too. Like I said, I just kind of want to see Malik Willis get a shot. And honestly, it might be better for Malik Willis for it to be the year after. But that's that's not like Darnell Mooney and Hunter Renfrow like didn't exist. Neither of them really existed this season. And I get there's no reason to tank it right now. There's no reason to need Tannehill off your team because the bottom picks are set already. So I don't know. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't really understand it either. I mean, in some leagues, I think it does. It could go. Well, no, you're right. The bottom picks are pretty much set in all leagues. I actually, in some of my leagues where it goes by potential points, it goes for the whole year.
The whole year. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I just figure, it should count. It should the whole season should count, not just the first. Why did the first only 14 games count for? If you're going by how good the team is,
well, that's how they do it in the NFL.
Yeah. Exactly. That's not why, but
Honestly,
my logic
really
is just
think about that before.
My logic is it's just the whole. Well, I mean, when you're doing it, I know in your leagues, most of your leagues, it's by record, right?
Oh, it's by record.
That, I mean, obviously, it has to be just now it's set, but
yeah,
most of my leagues, it's potential points. So why would I stop?
It doesn't.
Why wouldn't I take into account their whole season of potential points rather than just the first 14 games? So in some leagues that might matter, but.
That's super interesting. Again, because I don't know if I'm in any leagues that use. Actually, yes, I'm in like 2 that use potential points, but they're also teams I co-manage with people, so I don't always pay as much attention as I should. But yeah, that's a very interesting point that it doesn't really need to just be the regular season with potential points because even if they don't set their lineup, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we're getting it. But yeah, so.
We're getting sidetracked. Like that doesn't happen when we open our mouths.
I think we talked enough about that trade anyway. Yeah, Mooney is a nice little player, but now he's out for the year too, and who knows what the Bears are going to be next year? Yeah. If they're probably going to draft a wide receiver, yada yada yada. So
they better.
Yeah.
So we move on to Trade Addicts 2, where I traded away one of my Debo shares, and this one was tough for me. I don't remember what my original offer was, but it was Debo for Cook plus, more or less. And I got countered back Debo for Cook. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm just like, Debo is a young wide receiver. He's not doing great, but he's still a young wide receiver who had like a wide receiver 2 season. the wide receiver too. I don't think he ended as the one, right? No, Cup did that still.
Yeah.
And Dalvin Cook is a 27-year-old running back who you can't even get a first for at this point. So doing that straight up, and I get that even before being injured, Debo wasn't really helping my team, and that is absolutely in this other team's right to hold that over my head as a playoff team trying to trade for a player. Of course, Dalvin scored 6 points this week, so that doesn't really help me anyway, but that's besides the point. Well, help me more than Debo. See, sidetracked.
Getting sidetracked.
And then I sent Debo and a 24 third for Dalvin and a 23 second. And it got rejected fast. And I was just like, I messaged them. I'm like, that pick swap really was like just far too much for you to, to do it. And they're like, yeah, it's just more than we want to pay. And then I'm like, cool. I don't counter, don't do anything. And then I think it was like the next day I get Debo in a 24 second for Dalvin in a 23rd second. So I'm absolutely cool. First of all, the weird thing is those are both mine. It is I sent away my 24 second and I got my 23 second back, which is just made me giggle. So that made me happy. Just pushing up a year's pick, and that was enough for me to say, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I originally was not loving it because I know Dalvin has not been playing well recently, and I looked it up, and he has under 10 points 3 of the last 4 games, but he's also played the last 4 games for top by MFL stats for the top 10 running defenses,
Also,
and his last 3 are against
Colts,
3 of the
Giants,
top
and Packers.
the bottom 10,
7, 22, and 28.
So I kind of love it now after I saw that.
I may have traded for a few Dalvin shares in the past week or two.
So yeah, I think it's fine though, because like we said, Debo is so hard to trade. Before the injury, it was so hard to trade anyway, and I think you could get a nice little Dalvin bump at the end of the year here. And it's not like he's been awful this year. He's been way more up and down than he has been in the past, but he's got multiple 20, 25 point games this year. So
there's never anything that made you feel great about it. That's the real big problem.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me try and find him. Wide receiver 22 overall, 13.66 points per game. That's not great. He has 1 game over 20 points.
Dude, Debo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is hashtag not great.
Yeah, and Dalvin, I mean, even though Dalvin's not having his usual Dalvin year, they're still giving him the ball just as much, and he's just been way more, probably a product of age and mileage. He's been a lot more up and down, but like we said, that schedule, he could win you a championship with that schedule.
Yeah. All right. The next year we have same league, same this guy, Michael Pittman for Josh Jacobs.
Give me Jacobs.
I got Jacobs, and honestly, I don't know why I did it. Like this is the
Russ I was sitting for there, a running back with a receiver.
He updated his trade bait because he just missed the playoffs, and he threw in the chat like missed the playoffs, come and get your playoff contender players. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm like, I know Josh Jacobs has a rough schedule, but why not? He's doing really, really well. He's 24 years old. It was worth a shot. So I did it. I really had no intelligent thinking behind this. I just felt like doing it, and I did it.
What's funny is I said, give me Josh Jacobs, and I did it because it was a rebuild, but I took DJ Moore for Josh Jacobs a few weeks ago, and there was a trade on the show, and he's scoring significantly less than Pittman and is about the same age or older. So, but yeah,
it's funny. Like we try and do these trades without context just because it shows value better. So of course, when it's one of ours, we completely forego that,
Yes,
and
to
we want to
give all
talk
the
about it.
context.
So, like, the fact that you were trying to get rid of Jacobs for weeks, like
Yes.
the whole season,
I kept
and you
posting
finally
in the
just had an
chat,
offer of a
take
player
the
you
RB2
liked.
off my team.
Yeah, it's just like you're just like, you know what? This is all I can get. I'm taking it, and
Yeah.
like that's really is a good thing, an example to show that each league is in fact its own market. You know, he couldn't get anything for Jacobs, and I just got him without really trying, and
Yeah.
it took a better. I don't know if it could have taken a lesser player. It was just this was the guy I chose to throw, and mostly just because I have a lot of Pittman shares, and I was just like, okay. So I tried it, and it worked. Ugh. But you know what? I'm
time.
not even going to be clever. I'm not going to do. You know what? It's time. I need this right now.
Sleeper, trade of the week. Sleeper, trade of the week. We're gonna talk about a trade addicts trade, and it's sponsored by the Sleeper app.
I look forward to the dance every week.
I got so excited I punched my glasses off my face. Okay, here we go. And this actually started. This is Trade Addict 6. This actually started while we were recording last week. Yeah, I sent it to you while we were recording the original trade that you rejected. I don't even remember the back and forth because I think this was pretty close to the offer I sent you. Oh no, because we were talking about Pacheco and we were talking about his value, and I was talking about how much I liked Pacheco, and you said, "Come get him in TA6 because you're rebuilding." I'm like, okay. So I think I sent something along the lines of Gabe Davis in a third for Pacheco in a second, something like that, because I was just hoping that Gabe Davis still carried a little bit more name value. You rejected that, and then sooner or later you sent me Pacheco and a 23 second for Davis and a 24 second, and again, moving up a year was good enough for me. I mean, like,
and part of that was too. You also had sent, actually, I think at one point you sent Pacheco in a 23 second and Davis for Davis in a 24 second, and I purposely switched it to give you J Mike's second because it's going to be the.
I asked for an earlier second. Is
yeah,
that what it was?
yeah.
Okay.
I have like 3 or 4 seconds in that league, and I switched it to J Mike's because it's obviously going to be 11 or 12. So let's not kid ourselves. It's going to be 12. So
for the next few years, it's fine.
Yes,
it's fine.
And I'm not even that big of a Davis guy, but like you said, he does have some name value. If he blows up, maybe if there's another blow up playoff game or something, I could potentially move him. I doubt he's on my roster to start next year, but I just thought he had a little more staying power than Pacheco does, even if he is on my roster next year. At some point, I have my doubts that Pacheco. And you were getting this. This was prior to Sunday, and you still had a chance at the playoffs, I believe, at that point. Yeah. So you were hoping to make it, and maybe lose to J Mike in the title game or something. But but yeah. So I just think next year when Pacheco's not going to be a thing, I think they'll find someone to replace him, whether it's in free agency or the draft or. CH just comes back and screws things up, and McKinnon too, and yeah,
I don't know. Like, I think I'm about to just dig my own grave when I say I think he's doing well enough to keep the job, and of course, well enough is never enough to keep a running back job. But I love the fact that he is looking more and more like a workhorse back every week that he gets the workload. Like, he's not a scat back anymore.
Mm-mm.
He was lowering his shoulder and running through people and then pulling a spin move and leaping over people. And the fact that he's still returning kicks helps in a trade addicts league, and he's good at it. So if he becomes a somewhat, even a workhorse back for the Chiefs isn't really a workhorse back because they just don't run the ball, or getting those extra points from a kick returner is very, and if they run it back and get a touchdown, it's even better. So I thought it was enough, but honestly, like, I like having Gabe Davis on my teams. I don't think he's going to be a steady wide receiver 2 or anything, but I think he has a pretty decent floor, but also we've seen has the chance to, what was it, like 2 for like 190 and 2? Like,
something like that. Yeah.
I was at a Jets game, and then I look up and it's like, oh, Wow, Gabe Davis just caught like an 80-something yard touchdown. How is Gabe Davis 2 for 160 something and 2 touchdowns? How did that math happen? Like what? What?
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, that was. But like that's him. He has the ability to do that, but he'll still get like he's like a tight end. Like he'll still get 6 to 8 targets, which is great for a team that has Steph Diggs on it. A team that has a quarterback that will run as much as he does, and then a team that still wants to run the ball. So I like having Gabe Davis as like my wide receiver 3 or 4. Like I think he's a solid play. But again, if anyone wants to give me a first for him, I will. Nice and easy.
Yeah, and I don't hate him. I mean, if he ends up on my team next year, that wouldn't be the worst thing. I do. I mean, I'm actually kind of building a nice little group of players. I won way more than I wanted to this year. Actually, I think I finished like 6-8 or something, and I expected to be far worse. So, and I've got a nice stable of picks. So, when J Mike's team peters out in 2030, I'll be ready to go.
Hey, I'll still be rebuilding somehow. All right, well, that was our trade of the week brought to you by Sleeper Fantasy, the fastest growing fantasy football platform in the world. Join a new Dynasty League or migrate yours to their platform and enjoy how easy they make it to manage all your leagues in one place. Join millions of players today on Sleeper, the #1 fantasy football platform. Download the app today to get started. We have our last trade, a Trade Addicts 8 trade, which is, as aforementioned, my second time where I traded away Debo before this weekend, where I traded Debo and a 24 first for Travis Kelce. This is a playoff team. This is honestly, I didn't really like my team that much in Trade Addicts 8. And that's when Kane, who I just got Travis Kelce from, just ripped my heart out by taking advantage of an outhouse challenge and sending me Jonathan Taylor or Travis Kelce. I then turned Jonathan Taylor into Amon-Ra St. Brown and that first. And then turned Debo in the first back into Travis Kelce. Because there was it's funny, like my team was okay. I liked my team. Then it got really weird and I didn't like it. And then a couple of upper teams started not doing as well. A couple of injuries happened and I'm like, I'm going to try this because Kane said he's like, I'm not making the playoffs. Someone take my good players. And I'm like, I do like having Travis Kelce on my teams. And I mean, I was both happy this got accepted and like skeptical that I overpaid at the same time. But because it's like you have this feeling of what Debo should be valued at. And then there's the reality of what Debo's valued at. That second part made me feel good about this trade. And I think that's just reality now. So I need to get that other part out of my head because that first part made me feel weird about sending it. But like, I have Travis Kelce on my team. I don't care. I'm happy.
Yeah, I was annoyed when I saw this trade go through because I actually had made him an offer for Travis Kelce, and you paid significantly more than I was sending. So, but I think I offered.
Wait. You pulled at me.
What do you mean?
Sent a bad offer.
Yeah, I think it was like Javonte straight up for Kelce, which I knew probably was not going to be accepted, but I was hoping maybe I could up
He's
it
rebuilding.
to Javonte plus. Yeah, plus he's rebuilding. So, and then I saw the rejection and the acceptance of your trade come through at the same time when I checked my email. I was like, damn it. I figured I'd probably get a reject, but I was hoping, okay, maybe I'll send Javonte plus, and it was too late.
It was nice of him to reject it and not just like accept it and you have to go revoke your own offer.
Yeah, he did
He's
do
such a
that.
nice guy.
But yeah, I thought when I saw it, I was like a little surprised too, though. I did actually think it was a little much, but like you said, maybe that is just.
I think that might just be what Debo's value is.
And it's sort of the remnants of what we believe Devo should be worth, but it's not. So
yeah. I was listening to the DLF flagship pod. I think it was 2 weeks ago at this point. I can't even remember. And they were talking about Debo and his value. And it was a very similar to what we're saying now, how his ADP stays. Like, even now, it's like third, fourth round and hasn't really dropped much. Ayuk's has gone up a bit, but like his trade value is so low. Like, it's one of those real weird things where I think his ADP just shouldn't be that high in the first place, but there really is a disparity between ADP and, draft value and trade value. They are two very different things. And Debo is clearly one of those. And I think I've gotten that beaten into my head this season when I tried to trade away Debo the entire season. And I couldn't get anything I felt was close to a fair deal. And I think it's just the reality of what his trade value is. And it's in multiple leagues. So it's not like we said before, each league is its own market. This was in multiple. This was a bunch of leagues. And then asking people's advice, because I felt like if I'm wrong, I would like to know it. And I'm wrong often, and people have no problem letting me know. But it's just, it worked out the way it worked out. So yeah. All right. Well, that is the end of our show sheet. No more questions in the chat. Any parting shots, Rock?
No, just this was fun. It was fun getting to answer some questions in the chat. We should do it more often.
We should,
not just before playoff time. We gotta do this again in like a couple months.
Okay, but every day we're going live. Every day. We'll do it live
every day of the year.
Hey Han, there's that divorce you always wanted.
Yeah, exactly. My wife would not go for that either.
Yeah, Rocky, we're moving in together. All right, well, that's the end of our show sheet, so that's the end of our show. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching along. Like Rocky said, this was awesome. This is always awesome. I don't know why we do this so little. But if you did enjoy this and you want to have this experience more often, patreon.com/tradeaddictspod. You watch us record. You can ask your questions in the chat. If we don't have our usual hour and 45-minute show, we'll answer them. Sometimes we just go on for way too long that we just don't have a chance, but we'll answer it afterwards. But also there's the group me chat, the Cool Kids Club, which is an awesome time. And yeah, that's it. And then there's ffpodshirts.storenv.com. Scott Fishbowl stuff is still there. All of the Trade Addicts and Junkies and Timeline and Get Real and all of those other stuff, all still there. Every single penny that goes in goes to Fantasy Cares, which at this point will go towards next year. So, because most of us did our shopping already, but just think about it. Start now. You get awesome stuff, and kids will get even more awesome stuff because we're starting in December for next December. Just do it. Don't even think about it. Just go. Just do it.
Just do it.
Did you do it? You did it. Good. Thank you. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to go to bed, except Rocky is going to stay awake and set up the playoffs for his
teams. I have to. I put it off too long.
Good night, everybody, except for Rocky.
Good night, Russ.